Take it there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility.
So egg prices are up, shockingly. And for most of us, it is not a surprise that Donald Trump coming into power has not been an immediate antidote to inflation and all other ailments of this country, despite the fact that that's what they promised and that's what a lot of his supporters seem to believe. That is not what has happened. And one of the main talking points of the end of the election there, the price of eggs, that was very much a tool that the Trump campaign used to win. The simple and relatable image of eggs and their prices. That is the kind of thing that wins elections, or at least can be leveraged successfully to do so. So now we're at a point where egg prices are no longer something that Donald Trump can use in his own favor, and instead they're a liability. And with Donald Trump's assaults on the federal government, the way that that is going to affect, industrial production of dairy and food and farms nationwide, it's not going to be good. His policies are not designed to create a productive and abundant nation. And he knows this, his people know this. Their goal is not to create wealth for anybody but themselves. And so that's really the point of this whole federal government project of dismantling as much as possible, is to loosen up as much funds to be appropriated back to the rich via tax cuts as possible. And so the fallout of that is that basic goods like eggs become even more and more expensive. Donald Trump is also deflecting blame for inflation in general, which he did just come into office. And so, it's politically effective to pin some of these things to him, like egg prices and inflation. So we should do it. That's exactly what they did against Biden for 4 straight years of his presidency. So we 100% have to utilize those talking points. But there's another reason that egg prices are up that is Donald Trump's fault, and that is what I want to get into in this video. So I'm going to play this clip. He's gonna tell us himself. So let's give it a listen.
Prices have reached an all-time high. What's your
Which is what?
Egg prices have reached an all-time high.
Before I ever got here, it was at an all-time. This didn't. Remember, I've been here for 3 weeks, and when you saw the inflation numbers, I've been here for 3 weeks. I have had nothing to do with inflation. This was caused by Biden.
So there he says there's a flu. There's a flu. And you can see he quickly bounces off of that. He doesn't want to focus on that. What flu are you talking about, Donald? I haven't heard about a flu. I watch Fox News every day. They're not talking about a flu. What flu are we talking about? The flu he is talking about is avian flu. And he correctly states that avian flu was a problem, and there were indications that it could become a bigger problem since before Donald Trump came into office. Interesting. So it's interesting that the first we're hearing about it is now, because that seems like the kind of thing, if Donald Trump had information that avian flu was a problem, which I did before Donald Trump came into power. So if I had information about avian flu, it makes sense that Donald Trump would have that information. So not only is it a problem, he acknowledges that it's a problem, but it's a problem that's going to affect the price of eggs, which again, that information was available before Donald Trump took office. If you have been paying attention to avian flu at all, and I haven't been paying as much attention as some people, then you knew this would be a problem. Donald Trump only brings it up in response to a question where he can use it as a shield from his own personal accountability. So we already know Trump's brain works that way. The outrage against it, sure, if you can muster some, perhaps that outrage is useful, but Me personally, I don't have that much outrage left in me for Donald Trump shamelessly defending himself and deflecting blame. That's simply what he does. However, this moment would have been a great opportunity for this journalist to say, wait a second. So you're saying the price of eggs are high because of a flu. Are you talking about avian flu? And if you are, wouldn't that have been a good reason to not stop the CDC from communicating with the public the moment you got into office? One of the first things that he did was stop the CDC and other agencies, including health agencies, from communicating with the public. The CDC is the one who has been telling us and could have been continuing to tell us about avian flu. So obviously Donald Trump and his evil consortium do not care about public health. They don't care if people get sick from bird flu or any other kind of flu. And their actions have directly made that clear. They want to destroy the apparatuses that protect people from public health crises. But this moment here was a vulnerability in Donald Trump's assortment of talking points to defend himself, deflect blame, or project some kind of strength, where in order to defend himself against the price of eggs rising, which is the opposite of what he said it would do, he has to point out the avian flu. The reason people don't know about avian flu, the reason people don't know that it's not necessarily Trump's fault at this moment that egg prices have gone up, although you could argue certain market forces in response to his tariffs have also led to this, or certainly his policies of cutting off funding to farmers nationwide and that sort of thing. I mean, you can make an argument there, but I think the most immediate effect, the reason egg prices are higher right now, is because of avian flu. And if Donald Trump wanted people to know that, he could have not kneecapped the agency responsible for informing people about that. And I know why this reporter did not seize on that moment. First of all, that they may not have made that connection quickly enough. Donald Trump's really good at that, at coming up with something colorful to say out of nowhere. That is hard to respond to in the moment. And he sort of outwits reporters by doing that pretty regularly. Because they're nervous. They don't want to say the wrong thing. Donald Trump is known for punishing people in the press pool. And so he's able to wiggle away from their questions by throwing things. She wasn't expecting him to say anything about the flu. But the fact that he did is those are the type of vulnerabilities in his talking points that could be used at very least to rattle him. And again, the press is afraid to do this because they will be individually punished. And that's exactly what he did to the AP recently. He kicked them out of the White House press pool. And I'm not sure if that is permanent. You know, Donald Trump has done stunts like this before, but this entire time, all the press has ever had to do in order to combat those tactics from Donald Trump is to unite against him. And that is really the answer to all of these problems. Every single problem that Donald Trump presents at every level of society, the only response is collective power. And Zelensky recently at the Munich Security Conference said that whether or not, listen to this is very important, regardless of how you feel about the Ukraine war or Zelensky or whatever, what he says here is very important. Whether or not Donald Trump and the United States need Europe as an ally depends on if Europe is unified or if Europe is a bunch of different factions. So that is the fundamental dynamic of every single vector of society that Donald Trump is currently attacking. Divide and conquer is well known to be the tactics of any right-wing reactionaries at this point, certainly Donald Trump and his administrations. And so the more people are focused on arguing amongst themselves and focused on what they can personally benefit from a Donald Trump administration rather than what the collective harm is, then the more Donald Trump will be able to get away with. So at every level, whether it's the press, whether it is the labor force of America, whether it is Europe against Russia, whatever it is, that unification is going to be key in terms of disciplining Donald Trump and forcing him to stand down on some of these assaults of people's rights, the international norms that America has already gone a long way to destroy in its assistance of Netanyahu's war crimes and countless other incidents. Things like that are what emboldens a Donald Trump to test his power and see to what extent he can get people to back down. And so that's exactly what he's always done with the press. And the only way to get him to answer questions or to force him to take some kind of accountability in front of cameras, which I don't think is impossible. It seems like a lost cause because he dominates the camera so well. But again, it's just a matter of utilizing leverage. If the press allows Donald Trump to control the situation entirely, then they're going to lose to him because he does not wield that power fairly, and we all know this. But in Donald Trump, we see a fundamental disregarding of the social contract. This is in terms of Social Security, this is in terms of freedom of speech and the press, and it's in terms of stopping the government from informing people about avian flu when it was going to have a direct effect on people's lives. And so we can't let that slide, you know? That's the kind of thing that not only did Donald Trump use to win an election, but his support with many people hinges on the perception that the economy is doing well. And there's some very real concerns that by infiltrating these various agencies that publish information about how the nation is doing economically, financially, health-wise, that Donald Trump is going to be able to manipulate people's perception of how well they are doing under a Donald Trump administration. That's a very real threat. But right now, we're not at that point of complete control by Donald Trump of all of these agencies. And so now is the time to utilize collective force and push back as much as possible, because the further we allow him to go, the further he's going to go. And this administration is 100% about the tearing up of the social contract. And when somebody does that, you can't continue holding up your end of the contract while someone is robbing you on the other end. That's how you get taken advantage of. And that's what's happening right now. So the conditions are such that it is time to utilize collective power in any way possible. And the more unified that is, from the press to the labor force to international solidarity, the more it is going to force Donald Trump and the Republican Party into submission. But people have to recognize not only that they have the power and the right to utilize that kind of leverage against the president and the government, but also that it's time to do it. The conditions and the warning signs are bad enough to justify as much collective power being leveraged as quickly as possible, because the longer these people are in power, the more they're going to chip away at the ability to collectivize for anybody. They're going to do that with Europe. They're going to do that with the press. They're going to do that with labor. It's divide and conquer. So we have to move as fast as possible, and we have to upend our end of the social contract in any organized way that we possibly can. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. And if you really want to support the channel, consider becoming a member. That's the best way to support this content. I'll be posting exclusive content there, exclusive music, exclusive beats. If you like the music that plays in the background of these videos, all of that's going to be posted there, and more different kinds of content. And if there's anything that you would particularly like to see as exclusive content, then just let me know.